What's up, everyone? Today we've got one of Malaysia's finest. He ascended very quickly from mid-stakes to high stakes, actually abandoning a career in investment banking to play poker, of all things, which he found more liberating and more money in it, too. Who would have thought? In addition, he's also got some other tricks up his sleeves, it turns out, or tricks on the skateboard. Who would have thought? We talk a little philosophy. He's into Stoicism and the practicality of that in poker. He's also become a businessman through poker by purchasing the Asian Poker Tour, APT, and now he's running tournaments in Asia, or helping with that whole process. And stay tuned to find out more. What's up, Michael?
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for taking part in this. Why don't you tell us, how do you get started in Malaysia? Isn't it, is there much gambling there? I know Paul Flaw and those guys are there. I don't know if that's relevant to you.
Uh, it it, it kind of is, but not in a related way per se. So I guess being from Asia, Asian culture is very conservative when it comes to gambling, and the stereotype whereby Asians think poker is gambling and gambling's bad and you're gonna lose the family fortune is actually kind of true. So back then when I was in college, actually one of my friends asked me to go to his house to play poker at the end of the year during a college break, right? And I was like, nah, I don't want to play. It's gambling. It's I don't want to gamble. That kind of thing. But he's like, no, 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 you gotta come. It's fun. You gotta come and try and play. It's really fun. And I was like, okay, fine. We'll give it a crack. And tried playing. It was really fun, and I won some money as well. And yeah, I kind of got hooked since then. The winning money part is kind of what gets you as well.
Sort of
Yeah,
that combination.
yeah,
Fun plus money.
yeah. And but that being said, my parents didn't take it too well in the beginning as well, because of the whole lose the family fortune thing. But I just kept playing quietly, and eventually told them that I won a bunch of money, and they're like, "Huh, really? For reals?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, for real, for reals, I won a bunch of money." They're like, "Huh, okay, we'll see." Yeah, that kind of thing.
It was something like that for me with my family anyway. They locked up my savings and yeah.
Scared you blow the bankroll up playing too high.
Yeah, and then they changed their tune a little. I'm a little curious about a couple things here. So I've heard that there's some part of Asian culture that considers gambling like communicating. There's like some spiritual element to it for some reason. It's like communicating with the universe, or at least that's in Chinese culture. Is that relevant at all to Malaysia? And there's also a lot of people that gamble in China. I don't know if that's remotely relevant at all. It's just
Don't know about communicating with the universe. Not sure about that part of it, but definitely it's embedded into Chinese culture or even Asian culture. So in Malaysia, there are three main races: the Malay people, the Indian people, and the Chinese people as well. So I'm actually half Chinese. My mom is Chinese,
okay.
and my dad is Sri Lankan. So I'm mixed. So actually, right now it's Chinese New Year. The period. So Chinese New Year is on the 21st, no 22nd actually. So like everybody's gearing up for Chinese New Year, and gambling is a big part of that as well, but more in the fun sense. You gamble amongst your relatives. Not too high stakes.
Sure.
Sometimes it gets a bit out of hand with some people. But not for me. But yeah, it's very accepted to gamble during Chinese New Year with your friends and family, and it's more of a fun recreational thing.
Okay.
But that being said, we do have affinity for gambling, I guess, to a certain extent.
How does
Yeah.
that work? How do you have an affinity but like look down on it? It's such a strange thing. And also, did you have?
Yeah, it's like how do you explain it, right? People, not people, okay, some people, right, like to gamble, and they just have this desire, or they find it so fun. It's so thrilling, it's so entertaining. They just have this need to gamble. That being said, this leads to, of course, the downward spiral, and where you lose the family fortune, and bad things happen, and that's why there's that stereotype whereby gambling is bad as well. But I guess we we kind of have a bit more of gamble in us compared to other people to a certain extent. Yeah.
It's funny. It sounds like a vice. This looks like.
It kind of is. It kind of is a vice. Yeah, it is. Yeah,
All right.
but it's okay during Chinese New Year. It's fine during Chinese New Year. All is
All right.
accepted.
Did you have any friends that were coming up with you when you were playing professional poker? Or is it just you?
Yeah, so that's where the funny story comes in regarding like Mr. Paul and Mr. Richard and stuff. Not directly with them, but actually with Wykin.
Oh,
So actually, there's a small community of poker players, and all of us kind of started at the same time, and we kind of came up together as well to a certain extent. So Wykin was actually my foosball friend, you know, like table soccer,
really?
foosball. Yeah, yeah, so we competed in foosball competitions, right, in college, and we were in like a similar area in college, and we used to partner each other and join competitions and stuff, you know. So at one of these events, you know, he was like, "Hey, Mike, you play poker, right?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I play poker." Then he's like, "Oh, my dad plays poker too." Then I was like, "Ah, cool. Where does he play?" Then he's like, "Oh, with Phil Ivey and Tom Duan." And I was like, "What?" And that's when this whole 2+2 thing, you know, came out, and like, you know, Tom Hall was, you know, telling stories on 2+2 and
Yeah.
stuff, right? And I was like, your dad plays in this game? He's like, yeah, for reals, you know. And I was like, shit, that's so uncanny, you know, and it's kind of weird. But I mean, at that point, Wykin had just started playing as well, so we used to go and play, you know, some games together and like some poker places and stuff back then. But of course, you know, he kind of like, you know, eclipsed everybody else really quickly as
Mhm.
well. Yeah, but in terms of like people who play from the ground up to a certain extent and like kind of like spend a lot of time studying and playing, there were a couple of Malaysian guys that, you know, were doing it at the time as well. Not too many left. The few that are left are mostly the ones that you see around playing with you, you
Okay.
know. So yeah, it's not too easy to stay in the scene, I guess, for a
So
long
you
time.
really are Malaysia's finest, basically. You and I guess why can't
Why
qualify?
Kane, Webster, yeah, Wai Leong, Ivan, you know, those guys.
It's so funny how you guys connected. Uh,
Yeah, small world, you know, random.
Story checks out, I guess. Well, glad you had someone out there with you. I heard you, or I read that you gave up your investment banking job. I like would have imagined there would be money in that. I feel like I've met.
Yeah, I think there kind of is, but you know, in Malaysia, I guess the currency is kind of weak compared to the US and other countries as well. So when you earn in Malaysian currency, once you convert it, it's not actually very much. So in university, before getting a job and stuff, I actually played a bunch of poker, obviously, and won some money. And I decided before I start working, I'll take 1 year off to travel and play poker. And I said, if I win $1 million, I'm not gonna go and work, right? And I actually had a scholarship as well, right? At the point, so I had you know this working requirement and stuff. And then did not win $1 million, right? So I was like, okay, fine, you know, time to buckle down and, you know, try and see what jobs out there. And in university, my plan was to become an investment banker because I heard they make good money, right? And of course, it was interesting to me as well, like finance and economics and stuff like this. So I joined a local investment bank and I got accepted into their management training program. It was quite a tough program. It's like you had to take 4 interviews to get accepted and all that kind of stuff. And funny enough, I actually listed poker as one of my life experiences and, you know, like how I'm good at the game and all that kind of stuff. And based on what the recruiter said or like the HR lady told me, that actually did benefit my CV, you
Really?
know. Like they actually looked at it as something different and special, and I guess it's quite new age for Malaysian investment bank to, you know, see the value in poker and the skill sets that you learn, you know, when it comes to investment banking. And I was adamant that I wanted to become a trader, you know, equity trader, options trader, whatever, some kind of, you know,
Oh,
stock
it's very
trader
similar.
kind of guy,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, for sure. So that's that. I knew that's the direction I wanted to go into. But the thing is, when I was in uni, I was playing too much poker, so I didn't study
Whoops.
much. So when I went through this program, yeah, whoops. When I went through this program, I kind of had to catch up again and learn everything from scratch again. So I had to kind of like go through a lot of my uni syllabus again because like all the guys in my class were all like really smart and you know they all had masters and stuff and I was like this guy with shitty grades who plays poker, you know, that kind of thing, you know. So I yeah, I had to like kind of grind it out and I did well. I was like the top performer for my batch out of all the participants, and I got into the department that I wanted to, which was equity derivatives trading, so options and stuff like this, right? And the plan was for me to become an equity derivatives trader further down the line,
Mhm.
but I start off in the sales team because you got to learn the basics of it,
Yeah.
right? And so I gave it my all,
Really?
125%, you know,
Huh.
and I did well, yeah, in the job. I did well. They gave me a good bonus. I got a 1 year bonus,
Whoa.
you know, or
Sounds like a big
whatever it
one.
was at the time. Yeah, 1 year bonus, pretty much 11 months or 1 year, and it turned out my net take home, not take home anyway, my net before taxes was something along the lines of 30,000 US dollars or something like this
Well, like for how long? Like was this just like
for 1 year's salary, and I worked like maybe 60 hours a week, something like this.
well, but like how many years?
uh, for the most I ever got paid in the 3 year span. I worked for 3 years.
So
Yeah.
the most you ever got paid in 3 years was 30,000. That's kind of
US.
brutal. I mean, that's kind of sad.
Yeah, it is, right? And I was like, if I play 1-2, I make more money than this. So like, yeah, it's kind of difficult, And this is like one of the top paying jobs as a graduate in Malaysia,
Well,
Like I was doing really well for a Malaysian graduate and stuff. Yeah, so it's kind of rough.
yeah, in the U.S., it's like an average salary. By the way, it's like slightly below average salary in the U.S. But the U.S. expenses, I guess, are higher. People don't really know that. It's not usual to have money in the U.S.
It's-
I would have thought. I keep
yeah.
hearing, I keep meeting all these like super rich guys in finance in all these places. I'm thinking, what are these guys doing? Um,
Yeah, so, yeah, but I mean, in America and like Hong Kong and stuff, you get paid really well, like multiples of what I got paid. So, for example, right, when I was in my training, they sent me to Singapore for a rotation for 3 months to work in the Singapore branch, and I found out like my colleagues in Singapore have the same ranking and same role as me get paid the same amount in Sing dollars, which is worth 3 times more than Malaysian ringgit for doing the same hours and the
yeah,
same job. So
it's time to leave country, or
yeah,
well, if
it's all go back to playing poker.
well, there you go.
Yeah, time to go back. There you go. So that's kind of that's how it went for me, And I decided that after giving it a crack, is just the path didn't seem too bright, going down this path. So I guess poker is what it was. And like I was quite decent at the time, I was a decent player, and I wanted to see how far I could
Mhm.
go to a certain extent, and so that at least I know that I tried it, and see what happens, and I guess it worked out all right. I guess, yeah.
Was there something in the middle of you going from the mid stakes to the high stakes poker? Or yeah,
Yeah, pretty much. So I was playing, low mid stakes, whatever, uh, doing what I was doing, and I was winning. I was doing well, right? I was on a heater, big heater, maybe 2017 or so, and then I remember quite clearly. Actually, it was in Barcelona actually, and then Ivan was like, "Hey, are you coming to Barcelona?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, let's have a chat when you come," And Ivan's like, I was like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever, And we played against each other in Malaysia a little bit here and there for fun, but nothing much, And then he comes along and says, hey, I think you should play super high rollers,
all right,
I
why
was like,
not?
yeah, what do you mean? Yeah, I said, oh, I'll put you in, like we just come up with some kind of deal, and I think you should play, yeah, something like this. And I was like, are you sure? That kind of thing. Then like, yeah, I'm sure. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Just go and play.
But
Yeah. So next thing you know, I'm buying into like a 100K Barcelona Super High Roller. Having playing the highest a 10K previously before that.
mhm.
Yeah. So that's how it began, I guess, and then that's how this thing started.
It's
Yeah.
one way to get there, I guess. To just have a friend who just buys you in. He's like, you know what? Why don't you make us some money?
Yeah. I mean, having good friends that believe in you and support you, it really helps a lot, and they really did. Mr. Paul, Mr. Richard, Ivan for sure. Yeah, they have helped me a lot.
Yeah, it's a pretty big gap to go from 10K buy-ins to, or even below that to 100Ks. I think there's a big difference between 25Ks and 100Ks, personally.
No shit, bro. No shit.
I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
don't think the
yeah.
difference between 25Ks and 10Ks is that big, frankly. But I mean, there's some 50Ks, and they're like the 50Ks are like not really a stepping stone because they're so infrequent, and then there's quite a few 100K buy-in type things. I mean, I guess someone could like go to Triton and be kind of nitpicky if like for whatever reason they could gamble that way. But like all the top pros play the 100Ks, and then usually 25Ks have all sorts of VIPs and things like that, and lots of people taking shots. So that's a big jump. That's like now you just play with almost all the best players in the world versus and like a few fish or a few VIPs.
I mean that it is very different. Was it tough? Yeah, of course it was tough. Yeah, of course it's a different game, But you kind of learn to adapt, and of course, like at that point, I was playing a lot, I was studying a lot, so I wouldn't say I caught up, but I can kind of hang, I guess, kind of. Yeah. So that kind of thing. You're forced to get up to speed. Let's put
Sure.
it this way, to a certain extent.
Yeah, well, it sounded like
Yeah.
it wasn't too big of a deal. Um, it sounded like it was a bit of studying and whatever, some experience, maybe a couple wins helped.
Yeah, a couple of wins help. Yeah, sure. I only won one Triton event so far, I think. Yeah, I don't think I run the best in the Super High Roller so far, to be honest. But I guess that's what everybody says. But I do have video evidence though. Big
It's
spots,
funny you say that with
big
all
hands
those
that didn't go my
trophies in the
way.
background. You want to talk about those?
I don't. I mean, I have one Super High Roller trophy. The rest of them are like 10Ks and below. That kind of thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's just casual 10K. Like, no big deal with like, a couple hundred people.
I mean, like in Asia, I think obviously I won a bunch in Asia because that's where I started my career, right? And I played the most. Obviously, there's a very big skill gap between the fields in Asia and Europe, for example.
Sure.
So it is softer. It is easier to win. To be honest, yeah. But I did win an APT high roller as well, so that's all right, I guess. Yeah.
It qualifies. It's all kind of the same. Well, it's not really. Sometimes they have like 8 people. And some are really soft. I think I won a Super 8, whatever they call it, Alpha 8 high roller. I don't know what that means. Um, in uh, in South Africa with like 8 participants, and it wasn't the strongest field ever. But I guess like that's one way to do it. You have to find the sneaky ones. So,
Was the trophy nice? That's important. Did the trophy look good?
I don't know where the trophy is. It looks like an 8, I think.
That's how much it mattered to you then, this 8 player high roller.
Yeah, I mean, like the title is worth more than the actual trophy. Like, I just didn't like have somewhere to put the trophy. So I was like, all right, whatever. I'll just like ship it somewhere. Um,
So what do you use to keep track? Like hand them mob, I guess.
yeah, I think someone will keep track. Mention it for me, I guess. Yeah, I don't have the trophy.
The life of Dan Cates. You don't
I
have
don't
the
have
what,
the
sorry?
trophy wall like you do. Like, then it might be different. I might like build like a, I don't know, some kind of scene with it. If I was that.
I think you should. It makes a nice backdrop, I think. My room's kind of messy, but yeah.
I don't know. I guess some people must have scenes, trophy walls or whatever. There must. I don't know. It's not something I've really thought too much about. But I'm sure some players must have. That maybe.
Jason Kuhn has a nice one. I recall seeing in one of his stories he has a nice setup with all his trophies
Mhm.
lined up in the background. Yeah.
I wonder. I guess Phil Hellmuth's one must be extra ornate.
Haven't seen it. I wonder what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you should ask him to go and post a picture on Twitter.
Yeah. That I should have asked him for sure. Um. So yeah, tell me. I read that you like bought APT. Like I guess I don't know if I must have read that right. I think that you bought it. How does that happen?
Yeah, me and a few friends actually took over the APT in June last year. Yeah, 2022.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the discussions started during COVID,
Hmm.
and as back then it was a different environment, right? Like everything was shut down and stuff. So I guess the team was looking for someone that was passionate about the game
Yeah.
and would be willing to invest and take the brand to the next level. And we were a good match because I started my career in the
Oh,
APT.
well, that.
So one of the first tournaments I ever won, yeah, was at the APT. Like 10 years ago, wherever it was. So I'm very familiar with it, and my partners are as well, and we have good relations with the team, and it worked out well, I guess. So far so good. It's been an interesting journey. Going from a player to operator to some extent.
How's it been interesting?
Well, usually I'm on the side of the player whereby you just want to play and you look at things from an EV perspective to a certain
Hmm.
extent, right? And when you're on the operator, you're kind of on the other side.
Sure.
But that being said, our vision is very different from just a pure profit model. We also want to give the players the best experience we
Oh,
can.
yeah.
So that's like at the forefront of our mission. So we're trying to see how we can do that and also make some money at the same time. Hopefully at the end. Yeah.
Sounds like a good business. Good business is supposed to care about the customers, right?
Yes, of course. I mean, like for us, like we love the game, right? And my partners as well, and we play a lot, and we kind of know what players want because it's just a reflection of us, right? Like what we want to see at events and how events are
Sure.
run. So I think we do have a bit of insight, and we do play a lot. Like I do play a lot. So yeah, maybe not as much the past couple of months with this new business and stuff, but before that, for sure, on the grind.
Hmm. Um. Yeah. Well, good marketing also. Didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
I in fact might.
yeah, of course. Yeah, you go.
I
So
in
yeah.
fact might play a couple APTs. I was like thinking to. I almost played one in Korea, but I'd probably play a couple others. I mean, if it's gonna be like that good for that great of an experience that you're talking about. Uh,
Yeah, I have a suggestion. On the 28th of April, our Taiwan event starts. So that will be our, kind of like a big event for us. Let's put it this way. I don't want to spoil anything, but Taiwan is going to be a big event. It starts on April 28th. So maybe you can come down to Taiwan, and I'm sure you like Taiwan.
I
It's an interesting place. Lots of good food.
I
Nice place.
would, if like I was hopping around all these places, and there's a pretty low chance that I'd personally join, but like that would be one that I would end up joining if it wasn't like that inconvenient for me to go. If
Yeah, I think the only issue is that Monte Carlo EPT Monte Carlo overlapped us, so that's not so good. But yeah,
I
it is what
actually
it
don't
is.
like that one.
Wonderful. That's great news.
I think Monte Carlo is boring. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to Monte Carlo, really. There's a whole lot to the areas around it, though. Those areas can be quite interesting. And yeah, I mean, if I had to choose between the two, I would probably go to Taiwan personally, but that's because I've done it a bunch of times, and I don't know, it just seems really generic to go to these big high rollers to me, which generic and boring are kind of the same thing. It's like, what are
Yeah.
just big tournaments? I don't care. Like, there's nothing, there's some money in it. Yeah, yeah.
That's also something that we did think about, with the APT, and we did this like whole branding exercise, and we want to really try and localize it, and make it an Asian
Hmm.
tour, and focus on that aspect of the business as well. So it's not just the cookie cutter events, and tournaments that you just
Hmm.
see everywhere. So it's not an experience that you just change the branding on the wall and it just could be any tournament, that kind of thing. So we're trying to look into that and make sure that the experience is unique as well for the players, and make sure that we have our own identity when it comes to that kind of experience.
How would you like it to be unique?
Well, one thing is, how will you put it, the Asian element,
Oh,
right? So like each stop is in a different country, or not each stop, but a lot of the stops are in different
yeah.
countries. So there are certain local customs or local traditions or experiences that you have, which you try and like tie into the brand as well, and even in terms of like the atmosphere and the venue and stuff like this. So that's one element, and of course like the way things are
Mm.
run. And the current APD has a very family kind of vibe. Everybody knows everybody, and it's a very relaxed atmosphere. So we're trying to keep that as well. So a lot of things are things that you can feel, but you can't really put into words per
Sure.
se. So yeah,
I would think that family vibe and poker would be hard things to mix. That I'm not.
you would think so, but not really. Like maybe Asians are just more friendly. I guess I don't
Huh.
know.
Okay. Well, I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of the Asian stuff in general. I'm into all sorts of Asian philosophies and things like that, and Asian practices. There's a lot of like hidden info in them, and a lot of no, not yeah, esoteric
Esoteric.
sort of subjects are in come from Asia, as well as there's a quite an interesting history to all of that for the people that are interested in that kind of thing too. There's lots of crazy stories actually, but I don't know one thing about Malaysia. I know some things about like some surrounding countries, but now I've also been toying around with some Asian martial arts as well. But yeah, it's a big place, so there's a lot to be curious about. It happens to be my cup of tea, anyway. And something different would be nice than going to some um, random PokerStars event, EPT, whatever you want to call it.
Have you been to Taiwan before?
I have not. Yeah, no.
Well, there you go. There you go.
I've been to Japan. I've been to
Korea
oh yeah,
for
Korea for
sure.
sure. I have been to China, but not really. Like if you guys manage to go to these kinds of places or to very esoteric places, that could be really interesting. I mean, there's Cambodia. I think there's poker in Cambodia. Uh,
There is poker in Cambodia.
uh, like Nepal and Brunei and all these other smaller countries.
I the issue is I think you might be one of the few that might want to go to these countries to play poker, because of access and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, it's not so easy to get there, but I think a lot of people are curious. I think I can see there being a decent crowd for curious people in poker. Although it'd be interesting to see a metric on how many poker players are actually legit curious. Don't think it's like the biggest trait exactly, but more poker players are more like people that tend to be rule breakers, I've noticed, or like aren't necessarily conventional. That's a big overarching trait I've noticed. Um,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I read that you have an interest in the philosophy of Stoicism. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Like I mean, I wouldn't say like I'm a disciple or whatever it is, but when I think I stumbled upon it through Tim Ferriss, listening to his podcast and his content
Hmm.
and stuff, and that's how I learned about Stoicism. But I realized that I had been doing a lot of Stoic practices before I even knew what it was, because it's kind of like very related to poker,
Hmm.
it's all about the process, and you kind of like get bad beat and you don't complain, you're making EV in the long run, that kind of stuff, right? So it's very related. So being like a poker player and trying to be successful at poker, you kind of have to cultivate these habits and this kind of values so that you can withstand the tilt swings,
Yeah.
right? And I'm sure you feel the same as well, and that's why like it's very natural to me. Stoicism seems very natural. It makes a lot of sense to me, and I can relate very much to it, which is why I think it works out well for me. Let's put it this
Hmm.
way. And I remember something that you said actually, and I don't know whether this is stoicism or not, and I think that was something really interesting, and I thought it was really cool. What you said was, just because I'm angry doesn't mean I make the wrong decision in the next
Hmm.
hand. I can still be angry and still play my A game. So I was like, damn, that's cool. Yeah, that's true. Actually, it doesn't mean that you cannot have emotion. You just gotta make sure you play right,
Well, yeah.
right?
Well, you have to handle your emotion, for sure. Although a lot
Yeah,
of
sure.
stoicism is creating habits to you'll get angry and like the amount of anger, the amount of anger that you feel, and the amount of
Time it takes to get over
yeah, I mean,
the
there's
anger.
factors related to it. It can be exacerbated, or it can be I forgot the other word, the opposite of exacerbated. But depending on your habits and that kind of thing, it can be more easily handled and better handled. You could say, and Stoicism builds a lot of habits that help with dealing it if it's practiced pretty well, as do many philosophies. I mean, it's sort of like it's more like a rationalist version of. I mean, I don't really know a whole lot about it actually, but my interpretation was it was a very like rationalist version of like other Eastern ones. Like if you really think about it, it's not many of the principles are not that different from like mindset.
Buddhism or
Well,
something.
not really. Like Buddhism has more of a spiritual element to it. I mean, they're kind of related. Like self improvement and spiritualism are a bit related, um, in that they're not they're along the same track, you could say.
Yeah.
But self improvement stops with it. Mostly focuses on. You could say it focuses on a different kind of game that uh, yields more. That people won't understand what I'm talking about. But basically, it like stops once you just reach this point of like okay, just having success in life. Um, that may be a better point. Whereas it doesn't like think like what is the point of life and all these other kinds of questions.
Yeah, okay, fine. That's a fair point. I mean, the reason for self improvement is to become successful. That's what you're saying, right? And not for like a higher reaching goal or something along those lines.
Well, it's more like it is, but the definition of success, and this is what people have failed to realize, is the definition of success is actually quite arbitrary, right? It's just, oh, like everyone needs money and freedom and all these like obvious things, but no one like takes it to another level and says, okay, well, like, why do I want these things? And is there something beyond that kind of thing? Like, if you extend self improvement, then you get to close to spiritualism. You don't get to the whole like facets of it, but you would end up realizing like, oh, like then you would get to the point of like, well, what if you're just happy all the time, sort of thing. Um,
Yeah, I agree for sure. And like asking yourself why. Yeah, I mean, Tim Ferriss does do a lot of this kind of creates content based on this subject matter per se, and I do quite related, I guess, to what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm expecting personally that the secrets might be somewhere in Asia related to these subjects of spirituality, because there's many different philosophies and stuff in Asia that are actually very compelling in comparison to the Western ones. But if you actually look in the Western ones, it's the same principles echoed many different times, just looked at it through a different lens a lot of the time.
So, what kind of Asian elements or practices or principles do you resonate most with?
I found Hinduism to be really interesting, and ones related to that, just because they would say things in Hinduism. It would often say things like it's really hard to check a lot because there's a lot of analogy. Like almost everything's an analogy in Hinduism, like the creation of the universe, for example, um, or Hermeticism. I think Hermeticism actually was really good. It's older than Hinduism. Within Hinduism, Advaita Vedanta. I mean, they say a lot of things that like logically check out, but they just say it from a different way, and for some reason use this language that Western people will not be able to understand easily. I don't know why they're doing that. There's a lot of like clever things they use in Hinduism, like which I mean, basically one of the earliest forms of entertain education through entertainment, which by the way, poker can also be said to be, if you think about it. Although, I mean, a lot of people need a bit more guidance to succeed at it. Is this religious text, the Mahabharata, which is basically an epic of it's basically a big story, and it teaches all kinds of lessons and that sort of thing, and principles that can be applied to real life, which I find to be really interesting. There's a lot of subtlety in it if you look really close as to like how it pertains to morality and that sort of thing. But you have to be into it to really appreciate these sort of details. But I think the most important thing is it's these stories are essentially education through entertainment as are games. That's what's interested me. And
Mhm.
Stoicism, yeah, it's good for a lot of things, making money, being free, and minimizing pain. It's good for all those things. But you can get those also from uh, Buddhism or Advaita Vedanta, or like you name it.
Yep, I get you. Maybe Stoicism works for me because I'm more straight to the point. So, yeah, it's a bit more clear. It's easy to understand. You don't have to think too much. That kind of thing. Straight to
Yeah,
the point.
yeah, it's more about like the practicality of things versus like uh, the Buddhism is pretty practical. The Hinduism is like kind of weird sometimes.
A bit more artistic, creative kind of thing.
Yeah,
A bit more beauty in the
more
practice.
like somehow like trying to be emotionally compelling or like writing off a bunch of praises or something like that. They like their
I get you.
praises. Yeah.
Right. Doesn't seem very practical to me.
Um. Yeah.
Nah, it's a joke.
There's some
Yeah.
missing pieces to a lot of it. I would say it's more like a lot of mythology.
Actually, I think in some of our history lessons, we do learn a bit about, Hindu law or like some of the stories.
Really.
And the storybook that you mentioned, is it Ramayana and is it Mahabharata, the one that you mentioned? Is it the one you draw the circle and all that stuff? And I can't remember exactly, but I do think, yeah, to protect themselves from it was in a story. I can't remember exactly. It's been a long time, but I do recall learning some of it in school a little
Now,
bit.
Ramayana was the one before the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is about like Krishna and like all the. It's like 5,000 years ago allegedly, but it's completely ridiculous.
Right.
Uh, I don't know how much of it it's like true, um, but the Ramayana is like 13,000 years ago.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, vaguely I do recall some of these names or
Yeah.
words. Yeah. Cool. it's good to know that you have like appreciation for all this Asian culture and stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah, most people don't get to that point, but well, it's good. Yeah, it's different, I guess you could say. Do you have any like stories from Malaysia or any like trips you've gone into other countries nearby or anything along these lines, especially if you happen to be interested going down that path at all of mysticism and that kind of thing?
Actually, I'm born a Catholic, right? So my family is staunch
Oh,
Catholics, pretty much. So not too much not too much exploration on the mysticism and
this is Catholic
yeah.
Catholicism for sure. There is.
Yeah, I guess so, but like not to explore other religions or cultures per se, in that sense, just I guess no, not really. I have never taken like pilgrimages or trips, religious trips to other countries, per
They don't have
se.
to be religious. It could just be for
Yeah.
fun. Maybe there's some kind of night out in Hong Kong or
Oh, you mean like, oh, you just those
yeah.
stories? Um, Let me think. Oh, okay. I have well, well, it's not sad, but it's not really Asia. It's Africa. So
Ooh.
actually, my dad, he actually passed away um, when I actually won an event in the US, like a big event. I think it was the MSPT
Mhm.
tour, and then he passed away on the way flying back from South Africa to England. So he had business in South Africa and was flying to England, and he couldn't breathe on the plane, and they had to land the plane in Angola, you know. So then he passed away in Angola. They say he had a heart attack. I don't know. So the problem was we couldn't get his body back to Malaysia, so I actually had to fly to Angola with my uncle, and go and claim his body. And the whole process was quite eye-opening. And makes me very thankful for being born in Malaysia and living in Malaysia. Yeah, it's quite a different place, and I don't suggest yeah going to Angola unless you have like big business there or something along those lines. Pretty different environment, I would say.
I happen to know a tiny amount about Angola, and that there are a number of very rich people there. It's like a little bit more developed than some of the other African countries. Um, yeah, doing things in Africa is very complicated for the most part. Uh, I have some
Yeah, yeah.
Africa experience. I've been to a wedding in Ghana. This with there was this like giant. Um, it was like a very rich businessman's wedding, so it was this giant entourage of cars. It was like 20 cars like lined up, and we went to this other city and dressed all in purple and this crazy had this party in this crazy palace, that kind of thing. It went on for 7.
That's a very different experience to what I had. When I was there, basically everybody was trying to hustle me, and even like even the security counter. So the thing is, to get to Angola, you need a visa for Malaysian, right? So I stopped in Windhoek. Where is Windhoek? I
Namibia,
forget the
maybe?
name. But it's no, no, it's in Africa. Windhoek. It's Namibia. Is it Namibia? Not Namibia. Well, I forget the name of the country, but the state or country, but it's in Africa. It's near Angola, and there's a Malaysian embassy in this place, right? And when I was gonna leave to go to Angola, the security guard, or I mean the security scanning people, people who check your bags, actually took my boarding pass and tried to hustle me for money for me to get my boarding pass to get on the plane. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like I went through the scanners and stuff, right? So I got through. I was carrying some cash, okay, because I need to pay for my dad's body to be repatriated. So I had some US dollars and stuff, and they're like, you can't bring this money with you. It's too much and blah blah blah. You can't have US. I was like, why? Why not? I looked on the website. It says that you can, etc. etc. Like, no no no, you can't do it. And then they're giving me a hard time. They didn't want to let me get through. And then I was like, okay, you just hold on for a second. Let me call the Malaysian ambassador. Maybe he can come and sort this out. And then the next thing, they're like, oh no, 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 it's fine. If you're transiting, it's fine. You can go, you can go. So fine, I went through. I got to the passport counter where they check your passport, and I didn't have my boarding pass. And I was like, hey, where's it gone? I said, oh, I must have left it at the security counter. So I went back to the security counter, and this bunch of ladies, like maybe 4 or 5 of them, and I was like, hi, excuse me, sorry, I think I left my boarding pass here. and do you see it? And they're like, what's your name? So my name is Christopher Michael Soyza. And they're like, so how much you want to pay me? And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, no, how much you want to pay me? And I was like, no, no, don't do this. Come on, I'm such a nice guy. Don't do this to me. And then I just kind of like went back and forth, and they're like, okay, fine. Here you go. Take your boarding pass back. Yeah, and that was sick. Like even to get into the airport, the guy at the door that allows people to get into the airport, who checks your boarding pass and your passport, was trying to hustle me for money to get into the airport.
Yeah.
And that's like, that's so strange. Like it's just so open, and like I don't know, it's just what didn't make me feel very comfortable, to be honest. Yeah. And actually, in when I was in Angola, the only way we got around and managed to communicate and stuff was through the help of a Catholic priest, who my mom, like had contact through the church or something along those lines, and they were helping us translate. They speak Portuguese, so they're helping us translate, and to speak to the mortuary and all that kind of stuff, right? And one day we went to change money, right? And then I had to wait in the car, right? Me and my uncle had to wait in the car, and then they went to change the money in the market, right? And I asked, like, why can't we follow? Or what happens if I go and change the money myself? And the priest said that, well, if you change the money, they'll change it for you, but then they'll rob you after that. So, it's quite different. Like we take it for granted that we're in such safe places, that we can walk around freely, and there's no issues. But these guys, they're really struggling. It's difficult for them. Their life is pretty hard. Yeah. And even the hotel I was staying in looked like it was a prison fortress. You had like barbed wire on the fences and stuff, and all the walls were like 3 feet thick. And I was like, why? It's like, oh, in case there are riots, because there are riots and stuff sometimes.
Uh,
Yeah, so it's like,
I
different
have
world.
not had this experience in Africa so far.
Yeah, you in a palace in Africa, bro. That's a whole different thing.
I mean, I've been in a few countries, but I've never had the barbed wire experience or like. Yeah, I don't think I've been robbed in Africa actually. Um, Not for much. That's for sure.
What does that mean? Does that mean that you have been
I
robbed, but
mean,
not?
like people try to hustle you all the time, and the northern African countries especially. But I'm sure there's ones that you just don't want to go to. They'll do it in Morocco and Egypt and these kinds of places. Um, that I don't know. I haven't had too much experience with that. Apparently, they hustle more when there's more peace. That's what I've heard. Is when there's war, they don't hustle so much. But I haven't been to the war
I
torn
see.
ones. Uh, I haven't decided to venture into, into those. I'm not that curious. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. You look like a prime target if
yeah,
you ask me.
I'd rather not tempt a lot of people. Don't know, like, yeah. Um, so I read that you don't want to be doing poker af- after like 20 years. Are you gonna like quit it totally, or do you have other plans? Like, what are you thinking? Gonna become an African
Oh,
emissary? Or-
I don't know. It's more like just the concept of that. The thing about poker is a great game, and it's a good way to make
Mhm.
money to a certain extent. But of course, the ceiling is kind of capped because there's only X amount of money to be won, right? Unless you get into like super good private games and stuff like that. Not only that, it's becoming more and more competitive every year. There's more educational material. People are getting better. There's more software. Kids are working harder than you. That kind of thing. And the bottom line is that if you don't play, you can't make money. You need to sit at the table. You need to play online. You need to spend the time doing the activity to actually make money, right? And you can't scale. There's no leverage. You could say that you could start a stable and stuff, but it's not reliable. It depends too much on human factors and stuff as well. So I think, like, for me, looking at where I want to be in 20 years time, I don't think poker is gonna get me there. I want to be more, I wouldn't say relaxed, but just not have to actually spend physical time being somewhere or doing something. I want more flexibility, and business perhaps could provide that for me. So like I've been trying to transition myself, or at least educate myself, and slowly look in that direction as well, in case there are more opportunities. So like, for example, the APT is an example of something that hopefully in the future could pay dividends based on the input that has been put in at this point. Something that can scale, something that you can use leverage to multiply your income, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it is difficult to scale at some point in poker. Um, Now, the APT sounds quite promising. Being on the operating end of poker sorts of things. I've been like looking for ways to scale myself. Uh, yeah, money wise, it's not particularly simple. We've been messing around with content and things like that. I mean, the podcast, by the way, is a way of
Of course.
creating influence, or yeah, influence, like a platform for influence, which at some point I realized, okay, well, I care about money, but I don't just care about money. I care about making an impact and that kind of thing. And they're a bit related. They're not, they're correlated. They're not 100% in line. Um, yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. If you want like a comfortable life, poker isn't ideal for that. You have to invest in something. It's quite a good idea, I would say. Yeah, poker's pretty good to get quite a bit of money, and I still think it's still growing pretty fast. And yeah, while kids are studying, I think, I mean, it's gonna be not that easy to. There's just be too many spots out there where there's money. In my experience, it's not like gonna catch up super fast. Like of all the industries out there, there's much more competition, and some really big industries that are going super fast, like technology and the one you were just talking about. Actually, stocks is super fast. There's like very fierce
Yeah.
competition, much more obvious, and all of like MIT and these. Do you know what MIT is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Is it Michigan Institute of Technology
yeah,
or something
yeah.
like
There's
this?
like super smart people like trying
Yeah.
to trade. And I personally,
Yeah, yeah.
I keep
MIT,
meeting
yeah.
these like massive traders that go to LA and Dubai and these kinds of places. Oh, Dubai is good. Um,
Yeah, yeah. The crypto traders, yeah, equity
mhm.
traders, all sorts of traders. They trade like the math guys. Like I have some friends who are really smart as well, and they're more math guys, and they just basically trade whatever. It doesn't matter. It could be a barrel of sand, and as long as there's a someone to sell it to, they can trade it, that kind of thing. So it's very interesting, like yeah, it's very cool, but unfortunately, math is not my strongest forte, not
Yeah,
at their level,
yeah,
yeah.
that. Um,
But the numbers that they're talking about are ridiculous, they're obscene numbers. It's like hundreds of millions, that kind of thing, it's just insane.
yeah, yeah, it makes sense. The swings are a little less also, and they're pieced out in companies and super complicated stuff with economics, I think, and or manipulating markets possibly. I don't know. Oh, uh, but I guess you're gonna keep traveling the circuit for a while. You're gonna keep going to the Tritons, maybe add some more trophies to the wall. Is that the plan in the near future?
Yeah, that is kind of the plan, yeah. I think I'll be spending a bit of time on the APT and other stuff, so maybe not as much, so I guess I'll choose my stops a
Hmm.
bit more. But yeah, I'll still continue to play for sure. Yeah, well, like another thing, like I spoke to some friends about is like, I did spend a lot of time trying to get good as well. So it's a bit of a waste to just stop, to a certain extent. I know it's kind of like a sunk cost, but I do enjoy playing a lot, so that's why also I still like to play. Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's like kind of an asset. You can probably make money with it for a while if you really have to. At least that's how I viewed it. But even I realized I had to like start working a bit. Took a couple hints, you could say.
So building the Jungleman brand, pretty much, right now.
Uh, Figuring out a way to do that, you could say, yeah. I want to throw a couple random questions at you to see a bit more of what you're like outside of um, the typical poker sort of thing. Uh, Choose some
Sure.
curveballs. What's the biggest lesson that you learned?
Biggest lesson
Yeah.
that I've learned. Well, there's a book by Ryan Holiday called Ego is the
Hmm.
Enemy. I think that's quite a big principle that I try to hold on to because we learn a lot more when we have an open mind and don't think that we know everything. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good lesson for me.
Oh, that's a good one. All the philosophies essentially. Well, I don't know if they all say that, but a lot of them do. They essentially get at something like that. Or I would just say ego is just a shorter term way of looking at things versus the bigger picture. It's always like the conventional spirituality looks at it that way, which seems to work a lot of the time. But that was a good one. Good answer.
Thank you.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
The first one that came to mind was actually a
Oh,
poker
really?
one. People eating with their bare hands on the table and
Who
touching the
does that?
chips, especially when it's like something. Well, people, people do it. Yeah, yeah. Like the World Series, you see people, eating like chips or whatnot and touching the chips and then eating the chips again. And they just don't care. Even for their own health. The chips are gross. Like the chips on the table are gross, and then they're eating their potato chips with the same,
Potato
fingers.
chips
Yeah,
are kind of
kind of
gross
gross.
too.
Don't like it. I like potato chips, just not while playing
Sure.
poker, and with dirty
Yeah.
hands. Yeah.
The bad health on both sides, I guess. Well, bad hygiene, whatever. Something gross in there.
But I eat them. Yeah, you gotta live a bit. You can't just be sterile and follow GTO all the time, right? You gotta get a bit tricky here and there.
Okay, not playing Life GTO all the time. All right, sounds more fun. Uh,
Yeah.
what do you think people misunderstand about you?
I think people think that I'm very very playful, right? And like very happy go lucky and very light, wouldn't say light-hearted, but happy-go-lucky, very chill. I am generally so in my mannerism, but when it comes to like professional stuff and work, I'm actually very serious. But people just don't see that side of me until we actually interact, like on a business level, or when it comes to a work kind of environment. So that's something that people do. Well, I wouldn't say get surprised, but something that they might not expect.
So you're more of a businessman than perhaps most poker players are. For
I would say so, yes.
well, yeah, I guess you have to be. Maybe APT is grooming you to be good ambassador and all that this kind of stuff.
Hopefully, yes.
What about biggest regret?
Okay, so this one I actually thought about, because like, thinking about the stuff that you want to do better in the future and that kind of thing, right? So like there's one that really jumps out to me very, very clearly. I was at the PSPC in the Bahamas, the first one, right? So what year was that?
Yeah.
2019, was it? I believe so,
Hmm.
right? And when I was a kid, I really liked
Yeah.
skateboarding, and Tony Hawk was my idol. And I wanted to be a pro skater, all that kind of stuff when I was 12, right? Fractured my ankle jumping downstairs. Okay, fine, whatever. So at the PSPC, Tony Hawk was there. I don't know if you were in the
I know.
Bahamas at the time, but Tony Hawk was at the PSPC, right? And he was like just chilling, like during break. He's just like standing outside in the corridor alone, right? And I was like, holy shit, it's Tony Hawk, right? So I went up to him and said, hey, Tony, I'm a big fan. It's nice to meet you. Shook his hand, but I didn't take a photo, and that is like a big regret for me, because he was a big part of my childhood,
Really?
and like all the stuff I did back then. Yeah, yeah, and I didn't take a photo. Like, why didn't I take a photo? Now that I think back on it, it's dumb. Yeah, I don't know. Just like maybe I just froze in at the moment, or maybe I was just too cool to ask for a photo. I don't know. But yeah, that's definitely a regret for me. Yeah, it seems kind of silly, but I really thought about it, and I really do regret. Yeah. Uh, Besides that, nothing much else that came to mind, because I do think about this question a decent amount. So I really try to do my best to make sure that I don't regret decisions I make. That's how I go about them. So far I think I've been okay, but this one's stuck in my mind for sure.
Did you skate or did you play his video games? Like, why is he?
I did all of the
Yeah,
above. I skated. I played his video games. I even have skateboards now. I still have. I went in Barcelona recently. The last Barcelona last year. I went and bought knee pads and elbow pads because I want to start skating again. But I'm old, so I can't afford to injure
really.
myself.
Oh, that's so funny.
Then
I would have
yeah,
thought.
yeah,
Like, who would have thought?
yeah.
Michael Soyza skates. He's a skater. Just funny, like,
I don't skate well, but I like to skate. Yeah. So like if you see like a lot of my shoes, I always skate shoes as well. Yeah.
I would have never.
So it's like legacy
Oh,
from my
that's
childhood.
so.
You
I
never have
played the
guessed, huh?
video game. I was so bad at skateboard at like anything along those lines of like feet coordination. I was so bad, but I like. I mean, if if I saw you skating, it would just blow my mind. I might have an aneurysm. But now I guess
Come on, man.
like
But why?
who would
Why?
have thought? Okay, well, I'm happy I asked that question. I just didn't think. I was thinking in my head, does he skate? Like, what? Who? Yeah.
Yeah, I skate. I skate. I still
You
skate.
do,
Like,
like,
yeah, I've skated at least once in the past 2 years, or something like this.
can you do like tricks? Can you do like a 360 or I don't know.
So my goal for starting to skate again is to do a 360 flip, right? A tray flip, whatever you call it. I've landed a kick flip a few
Good.
times in my life when I was a kid, but I also fractured my
Oh
ankle,
shit.
so kind of slowed me down. But I can ollie and stuff. I can skate. I can do a 50-50 grind
Oh,
on the box, that kind of stuff. I built a ramp in my backyard with my cousin. As one of my lifelong dreams to build a skate park in my backyard. So we did that. We spent $400 buying wood, and then in Malaysia it rains a lot, so the wood kind of got rotten within 3 months because it kept raining on it. So even though we varnished it and tried to seal the wood, it didn't last long. So yeah, it was fun. It's fun when we did it. Yeah.
I almost. Well, first of all, it's crazy that you can actually do like some real tricks, like some ollies and that like I don't even know if
Yeah,
my
yeah, for
audience
sure.
will know what an ollie is. Like it's like a jump with a skateboard. A 360 is like you have to go up and turn around, right? And land.
Yeah, but a 360 flip is the board spins 360 degrees and also flips at the same time. So that's a 360 flip.
Oh,
Yeah. It's pretty hard trick, I would say. Yeah. Yeah. I can't do it. That was my goal. I plan to learn, and I think I'll still try and learn it by the time before I'm 40. I guess I don't know. I got a good couple of years.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure you could. I like, when I was in San Diego and going all Diego Dan, I was thinking Dan Diego would I don't know if you saw that, but
I saw that. I saw the frisbee. I saw you doing random shit. Building the Jungleman brand. Yeah, don't think I didn't see that, man. I saw
I I
that.
figured like
Yeah.
Dan Diego would probably skate. Like that doesn't seem that unusual. Like I contemplated getting like a skateboard and just like riding it around in the poker room.
Yeah. Dan Diego would skate. Normally, it's like well, two of it, right? Surf and skate, right? Yeah, and snow. Well, snowboard, surf, and skateboard. Yeah, sure.
I think that'll need some practice to work that into the character, but I wish I could. It probably let me get away with it a little bit. Um, it sounds just too hard. Like
Yeah.
doing these tricks is like very hard. Um,
As you get older, the cost is higher as well because you fall and you injure yourself. Recovery is
yeah.
slow.
All right. I got one last question. What would be the title of your autobiography?
Huh. Oh, this is a tough one, man. Like you can't come up with this in like 2 minutes. It's like you spend like 3 weeks coming with
Well,
a
you've
title.
got your whole you
Um.
you've thought about what you want to do with your life a bit, I would think, and
Well, okay. I guess I'll just say the first thing that just came to my mind. I guess it would be live good.
all right. It's hard to go wrong with
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I remember you also
Yeah.
said that time is your most valuable commodity, and it's true.
Asset. Commodity. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I would say so.
Um,
Yeah. I agree for sure. Big part of what I mold my life around, I guess. So like I stay with my family as well. Stay with my mom, stay with my sister and stuff, and we get along really well. And I think it's good to be close to each other because I travel a lot. So it's nice to see each other when I'm back, even if it's 5 minutes in the kitchen on a daily
mhm,
basis. It's good to keep in contact constantly as best you can. Because not we don't have much time with each other.
mhm.
Yeah.
So Michael Soyza, the family man and the businessman, and the pro skater of the poker world too.
I'm better at snowboarding than I am at skating. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Sure.
Well, any
Maybe next time I get invited as a businessman for
yeah, you
Triton,
should work that angle.
based on
You're
this
the pro.
podcast. I'm sure you are trying to work that angle, but I don't think you're gonna get past it.
What's that?
I'm sure you are trying to work that angle, but I don't think you're
The
gonna get past
businessman
it.
for Triton. I
Yeah.
don't think I'm gonna get that. I don't think I'm gonna get that. I'd sooner be hired as like um, put together an entertainment gig. Like I think there's like a higher chance that I like somehow manage to put on a show. This will get me some comps. I'm working on some skills. Well, any plans for the future or anything else? I mean, perhaps you want to promote APT. Obviously, that's going to be a big part of your future.
So like the short-term plan is to get the APT going as best as it can. So April will be our big event
Hmm.
in Taiwan. So if you, I mean, I'm sure you haven't been to Taiwan. Always welcome to come along, and we are focusing very much on that at this point. And of course, play more poker, hopefully win more money, and yeah, get a bit more healthy. Perhaps that's also something that trying to work on. Yeah, not as easy as it seems. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for having me. It's been very entertaining. I would say, always good with you, Dan. You're funny, man. Like one of the funniest stories that I remember seeing from you was the one where you're playing in Bobby's room with Ike, and you keep calling him the Dark Prince. I found that extremely hilarious. Yeah, yeah,
It's kind
the
of a
Dark
dark
Prince.
prince. That was the running name for him in yeah, in Bobby's room. He hasn't shown his face. He's been in hiding, I guess, for some reason.
Did you give him this name, or when you say his running name, given by
It
you, I
was it
assume?
was given by David Oppenheim, and I tried to steal it myself actually, but I wasn't that dark as part of the problem. I forget, but I was dressed actually in black, but I don't think he was. His hair and hairdo just looks a little dark. He wasn't living up to the name.
Yeah, that's why it's funny because you look at Ike, you definitely would not think Dark Prince. He's wearing his white Uniqlo T-shirt, or whatever, and he's just not quite the Dark Prince in my eyes.
Well, he
Yeah, but it was funny.
came and tried to conquer Bobby's room, but appears he's failed. But I'm sure he's out there lurking somewhere. Now he's too rich, maybe. Maybe he conquered some.
Oh man, yeah, cool.
Yeah, maybe
All
see
right
you in
then.
Taiwan, and good luck with the APT. And yeah, thank you for your time, Michael.
Yep.
And good luck with doing the
Thank you, Dan.
360 if you manage to do it. You should make some content.